Hello America and world as a species identity of volume science inside a trap that knew, for example, victims would defend senses and sensibilities, for example, use Jane Austen's phrase, with defenses of what volume theory is. When someone says volume science, or what people agree to disagree about, quote unquote, on that mass scale originally and still, recorded itself in defenses of itself in relationship to discorrelation that is itself evidence, and where and how it was is pretending other, and where and how it was is having gotten away with it. And so it's valuing how everyone got away with it, keeping entrenched that which can't be simultaneously self-valued entrenched. That wasn't the cause of the other modern nations as well in a semi-ancient trap, using hundreds of nations at once, shared to and as an identity of negative value nature progression where we are this volume science, where and how we were revealed as a species, individual group together, as its identity of volume. Just as we have a whole bunch of identity of body, of parts of our body, cells, individually grouped in together, that are a semi-nature relationship. They're complete identities, and they're distinct identities. And each cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, manifest as taught to us. I learned that in Central Connecticut State University. Just a basic biology with a lab course. But I also learned intercampuses of each age in nature. And this is a republic that was demonstrably, more practically, not just more probably, revealed by the entire species working together before internation sciences became contained, criminally foreign influenced. There are proofs that the ancients were of a sophistication that already understood what criminal foreign influence was. But it was of a completely different nature, because the ancients also went by the evolution science that doesn't leave out identity of the ground. Its identity of relationship to itself. And not as an environment, but as an element, as one part, where distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Earth, for example, is a body of ground, distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously in relationship to the rest of space nature. The ancients revealed, science reveals, if you really science reveals that there are 1/3/5 bonded identities of that one volume. And that identity, and its identity of relationship to itself, is inseparable even from its smaller parts, even from the parts of itself. The ancients would demonstrably say, using for evidence also a picture of Jesus Christ with the English letter A on the left side of his head and a W on the right side of his head. Not because that's my last name. Because that's my initials. But because, by the way, my name is Anthony Sylvester Raymond Wall. That's not senior. I don't know. And women and girls is not, for example, this is a trap. How could anyone speak for women or girls when we've seen people stacking in relationships simultaneously? See, computers about what is simultaneous. the value slash S of the one identity of value slash value progression. That is an identity of volume. That is identity slash IES. And the slash is a semi-nature where it's one identity of volume. The slash in the plural are being not just generating and being generated into relationship to what is positive or negative. In relationship to that alone. It is not just in relationship to the identity that inventions work or not in relationship to it, invisible but still discernible. The identity that of relationship to itself, that keeps inventions further positive or not, to what is simultaneously positive, unto itself also further positive as the identity that is caused to evolution's fruits and gifts. Evolution, where it is, doesn't leave out the ground. It doesn't leave out the significance of the smallest finite thing, which is a relationship to invisible but still discernible. Correlation natures, trinities, identity of relationship to itself, in the value of that, slash S, only increasingly. Each identity of volume has a distinct identity of relationship to itself, in relationship to this. Its identity of volume's distinct relationship to itself, its non-distinct relationship to itself, and its simultaneous relationship to itself. And that is a relationship onto 5 invisible but still discernibly bonded distinct identities of sequence slash simultaneous nature, where they are simultaneously a trinity. There are 2 identities of volume that will only but won't, but one way, mix with and as the value of temporary space nature. Note where it is distinct, where it is Earth's temporary slash lasting quality of diffusion as a value slash value progression. We are not just stagnant values in relationship to the subjects as consolidated before us at each age of fact treatment nature in a semi-ancient trap. The simultaneous solutions involve the whole world blaming it on the negative value nature progression act in nature itself, labeling it an archetypal criminal enterprise, and seeing what can't get out of the way of that. But the only way you can do that and do it right is to be led by what really is going to cause identity of value in relationship to what nature is demonstrating. There are proofs, for example, that the pyramids are in relationship to how a method came, one method. And for example, unlike other criminal enterprises that could be made up, even anything that could be made up has a relation to this identity of value progression that all things are, that we didn't invent, the way we didn't invent them. See, well, this native, pure course, as nature's identity. See, that breaching method values a method of torture against Native Americans, a method of identity thefts and frauds against Native Americans. Then, first in sequence, And simultaneously, that was already having been against the other modern nations too. Everyone couldn't fathom all that. It was the breach archetypal criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers themselves, or were in the branches of government themselves, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. There are ways to discern through uses of words, of values, of time treatments. They use all ways too fast, too slow, blaming the easily discernible causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, nature, on other things other than selves, and more valuing than having been. And this breaching method knew that would be the outcome. No matter what nature of leader, people are all victims of every location, area, and state. Victims already having been sustained, reactions to it as fact-cheating nature, were hurt, tricked, persuaded, worse, forced, and worse. And just attributed to words other than it is recorded. Even online, what is recorded is being and having been replaced. So they have jobs and they have functions in relationship to business and identity of the ground, where we are this conduit per a method that has complete and had complete possession, already taken to collusion. Every single nation, individually grouped and together, the victims specifically for the reactions already having been self-valued. Then, verified wrongly. Such was exploited, for example, leading up to the World Trade Center in that context. For example, campuses across the globe, homeschooling across the globe, and then defenses of it. It requires, like name calling, like pretending people are narcissists, for example, to pretend they had conversations with people. Then more and more they have to hide lie progressions. They have to value where and how. The overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, and the branches of government at the same time are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive life, uses of identity, ground locations, like campuses. And that differentially too, because this is where and how they are used remotely as fact-cheating nature, as defenses of their fact-cheating nature, which is before the conduit. I mean, it's as the conduit. That is natural. That is an only increasing identity of forever nature, per science, whether it is plural or not, as one that is making more of that which is observable. Only the extent of it is debatable. Like, for example, the sequence nature true of identities of the past, even if they're not here, that has an increasing value relevance, positive relevance. Values, what is positive or negative, what is variable, or what is constant, is in relationship to identity. And that's in relationship to what was only increasing. Exceptions in exception nature are, for example, force space nature transfer. Is force space nature transfer. Lethe of Hades. A lethe is a river, like a river of obscurity. Some people call it, per Wikipedia. YouTuber Anthony Wall, academician. I'm saying it's force space nature transfer. What is nature? nature is identity's body, its identity of relationship to itself. And it is the value of that only increasing. And how so distinctly here, the more our little species, humanity, stays systems other than its native system, that revealed the actual sophistication that it knew that it could trick, hurt, persuade, force, unfathoming the phenomenon of 7 ancient nations and then of modern nations as victims, self-defending roles, with and as uses of all identity ground locations, while as fact treatment nature, and then further into sciences, as victims not fathoming. They could make the world self-valuing what nature would continue, the republic that nature revealed as a phenomenon, manifest, invisible but still discernible, through how it was is manifest, just like the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. There are relationships. Think about where all these seeds came from, if none of them will grow. Now, without all these things, we were forced. Think about that method that put those crazy laws when there was colonization. Think about what it was, how it was using, who would blame simple things like that, colonization. Yes, but it was a method. There was a method already using and having used. Every identity of country individually grouped and together, for how it already had all locations, areas, and states, self-valued. Reactions as criminal insidious natures to what hurt them, what forced, tricked, persuaded them simultaneously. Worse, to defend identities of science treatments, simultaneously identities of positive and negative treatments. Identity is a relationship to positive and negative simultaneously, because of where and how it is in demonstration of this quality of diffusion. That English and that ancient languages were revealed